My name is Amanda Converse, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Love Live Local. We're a small business advocacy organization located on Cape Cod. Along with my co-organizer of the event, Chris Almeida from Cocktails for Commonwealth, and bar manager at The Tasty in Plymouth. I would like to thank the organizations co-hosting this event with us. Thirst, who's been a huge proponent of the business interruption insurance issue across the country. I'm going to type in. Cambridge Local First, the Sustainable Business Network of Massachusetts, and Mass Restaurants United. So thank you guys for helping us get the word out about that and working on these issues. We also want to thank Senator Diana DiZoglio and Representative Dylan Fernandes for being an integral part of this effort all along. We also want to thank the elected officials and their staff who've taken their time to be here today. Senator Susan Moran's office, Senator Nicholas Collins' office, Senator Brendan Crichton, Representative Kip Diggs, Representative Mike Day, and Representative David Robertson. We also have Methuen City Council member here as well. If I have missed anybody, please type it in the chat. We obviously want people to know who is paying attention to the needs of small businesses. So thank you all. But most of all, I want to thank all of the small business owners, their employees, and their super fans for coming out today and taking time out of your busy schedules to join us all in standing up for small businesses, because you know how important they are to our local economies and our communities across the state. So I'm gonna start with my, okay. So to say small businesses in Massachusetts have had a tough year feels like a bit of a cliche at this point. We've all read the headlines that told us 37% of businesses have closed in the state. We've heard from our business owning friends the challenges they have faced and the pivots they've had to make. And those of us who own small businesses have seen sales drop 20, 40, 50, 75% year over year. And know that although aid has been offered by the state and federal governments and was much appreciated, some of it didn't apply, it came too late, it wasn't nearly enough, and didn't address the long-term nature of this public health crisis. To be sure, there are reasons to be hopeful and optimistic. Things have opened back up and we are almost to our new normal, but we can't ignore the challenges local businesses were facing before the pandemic, the enormous losses they've incurred during the pandemic, or the forecast that some industries are going to take years to recover post-pandemic. This means we can't stop fighting, not only for more support, but also for what's right. I know we're all really tired from this past year, but this is not a time for complacency. So today we're here to talk about 4 measures that would provide additional and long-term support to thousands of businesses across the state. They are compelling insurance companies to pay out on legitimate business interruption insurance claims, extending the ability for restaurants to sell cocktails to go, extending third-party delivery fee caps, and providing grants to small businesses that were started in early 2020 and have thus far been ineligible for any government funding at all. All of these measures were introduced into last year's legislative session. The issues of business interruption insurance and grant funds for nascent businesses were largely ignored. And both cocktails to go and a third-party delivery fee cap were enacted after very long delays and dollars lost by businesses, but only on a temporary basis. They were only enacted on a temporary basis. They expire when the governor's emergency order expires. Because of how important they are to small businesses, they were reintroduced this legislative session, and there was a chance to address all 4 of them a few months ago, but the legislator failed to act while small businesses continued to live with uncertainty. We will be hearing from small businesses today who would be positively impacted by the passage of these measures. But first, we'll hear from the 2 people who have been strong allies to the local business community, who have recognized the importance of these issues and moved these measures forward up on Beacon Hill. First, Representative Dylan Fernandes, who hails from my hometown of Falmouth, will be briefing us on the bill addressing business interruption insurance. And then we'll have Senator Diana DiZoglio from Methuen get us up to speed on legislation regarding cocktails to go, third-party delivery apps, and grants for nascent businesses. So without further ado, Rep. Fernandes.
Yeah, well, thank you, Amanda. And Thank you. I mean, Amanda's just a dynamo, right? Like Amanda's just incredible and such an amazing advocate. So thank you. And also Chris for all his hard work as well for putting this together and bringing this awesome group together. So I'll talk a little bit about the bill that we filed. And look, you know, as Amanda said, it has been a bit of a cliche about how much small businesses have been harmed by the pandemic, but that just shows how incredibly real and profound this issue is. And so over the past year, so many small businesses across the state, particularly on the Cape and Islands, but really across the state, have had their operations interrupted. But the business insurance interruption insurers have been refusing to pay out legitimate claims, refusing coverage, even when pandemics are not explicitly listed out in their policy as a reason to deny coverage. But these insurance companies have had no problem taking your money for the supposed coverage and making massive profits while your business and small businesses across the Commonwealth have been suffering. And this is exactly why small businesses pay for this insurance in the first place. But at the moment that you need it most, these insurance companies are denying support. And so our bill, H1079, Diana filed a mirror bill in the Senate 660. It seeks to fix this problem by mandating that interruption insurance cover COVID-19 related losses for small businesses with up to 50 employees. And under this bill, small businesses would not have to prove that COVID-19 was on their property in order to qualify for insurance. The bill's language is very specific and includes that these insurance clauses that insurance companies have kind of used to deny claims around exclusions for mold and pollution and animal infestations and bacteria, that does not count as COVID-19 in our bill. Ultimately, our goal is to hold these insurance companies accountable for refusing to pay eligible, legitimate claims that our small businesses desperately need. And look, it's been a tough year for everyone, but particularly for small businesses. At the end of 2020, 37% had closed in Massachusetts. That's crazy. That is profound. The leisure and hospitality and retail sectors in Massachusetts were particularly hard hit. Combined, these industries lost over $15 billion in 2020. And within those sectors, restaurants have had an extremely difficult year. And at the end of 2020, 3,000 restaurants in Massachusetts reported to have closed, which is about 1 in every 5 in the state. And on top of that, they lost about $2 billion in revenue. These industries are foundational to our economy, generating billions of dollars in sales every year and millions in tax revenue, creating tens of thousands of jobs. And a lot of these small businesses have already tried to file for business interruption insurance, but have been flat out denied by these insurance companies. And a National Association of Insurers report showed that of the over 200,000 claims filed, 80% were closed without payment and only 1% were actually paid out. But at the same time, according to the Insurance Information Institute, the insurance industry is sitting on $800 billion in reserves. So our bill will hold these agencies accountable for the payments that they already committed to make to our small businesses. And look, I grew up on the Cape. I grew up working in small businesses. My parents who live here both own small businesses. Running a small business is extremely hard, even when we're not in the middle of a pandemic. The hours are long, they're grueling. The median small business cash on hand is generally enough to get you through 2.5 weeks. So even a small interruption can be really hard for businesses to stay afloat. And after working so hard and contributing so much to our communities, small businesses deserve our support during this really, really tough period. And passing this bill, mandating that insurance agencies give small businesses the insurance payments they deserve, that they paid for, will serve as a lifeline to help recover from the hardship caused by the pandemic. So I'll stop there, but I want to thank everyone for being here today to support this bill, to support the senators' bills. Ultimately, we need your help to make this happen, right? So reach out to your state rep, reach out to your state senator, let them know that these bills are really important to you. Ask them to sign on as a co-sponsor, and with your support, we can move this legislation forward. So thank you so much. Thank you, Amanda. And now I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dylan, and thank you again for all of your support in this and going on this journey with us, and for fighting for small businesses up on Beacon Hill. Next, we'll have Senator DiZoglio, who is also fighting really hard for small businesses up on Beacon Hill, brief us on the other 3 measures we're going to talk about today.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. It's so great to see all of your faces. It's a beautiful day out. It's a beautiful day to come together to fight for the causes that are so important to all of us. My name is Diana DiZoglio, and I humbly serve as state senator for the 1st Essex District in the Merrimack Valley. I am truly honored to be here today for this important gathering with you all. And I want to first and foremost thank my colleague from the House, Representative Fernandes, and organizations including Love Live Local, Thirst, Cocktails for Commonwealth, Cambridge Local First, Sustainable Business Network of Massachusetts, and of course the Mass Restaurant Association for being here today and for your leadership on these issues that are so incredibly critical to our small business community. If it is not yet clear, running a small business is challenging, even in the best of times, let alone during a global pandemic that wipes out a huge percentage of your business practically overnight, leaving it struggling to survive. We've already lost, like Representative Fernandes was saying, 1/3 of our small businesses in Massachusetts to this public health emergency, and it's not over yet. An essential amendment that is needed to continue to provide our bars and restaurants with opportunities to navigate their way through these challenging economic times is an amendment I filed to the upcoming Senate budget, which will be taken up next week. It's number 114, which extends the current Cocktails to Go beverage program that was adopted as an emergency measure during the COVID-19 state of emergency. It would be adopted for 2 more years under the amendment that I filed. And businesses are still in survival mode, as you all know. If we have any intention of helping them to actually recover and not just survive, but thrive, they will need to continue to have opportunities to participate in programs like Cocktails to Go that provide them with much needed revenue streams, both now and in the future. Christina Theophanis, the owner of Semolina Kitchen and Bar in Boston, shared how important the to-go beverage program has been to keeping her doors open this past year, saying it was devastating to have to turn into a takeout operation and lose 100% of her liquor sales when a restaurant was ordered closed to the public in the early days of the pandemic. They couldn't come close to breaking even. But when the state finally approved Cocktails to Go, it was huge for her and her staff. She says it's desperately needed to stay in place as they try to recover their losses in the coming years. And they aren't the only ones. I see a lot of you on this call today for whom that's true. Other restaurants and bars have reported sales figures down by 50%, while Cocktails to Go program sales have made up as much as 10% of current sales. And that income, as many of you know, can pay the rent or keep an employee off of unemployment. But to make this opportunity work for them, many restaurants had to invest significant resources in building up the Cocktails to Go program. They had to purchase sealable bottles, caps, shrink wraps, labels, and spend time developing systems online and in-house. We must make it possible for them to continue to get a return on their investment. In addition to lost revenue streams as a result of no indoor dining or liquor sales, restaurants have also been subjected to exploitation by third-party delivery apps taking advantage of them during this time with exorbitant fees. Delivery companies charge restaurants a minimum of 25 to 30% for their service of placing an order, picking it up, and delivering it. And depending on marketing and promotion options, restaurants can pay even higher fees. None pay lower. When delivery sales were 5 to 10% of sales, delivery fees took 2 to 3% of total restaurant revenue. With delivery sales at 70 to 80% of restaurant sales, the delivery companies fought to take 18 to 20% of restaurant revenues. With an average restaurant profit, when average restaurant profit margins are at 8 to 10%, this makes restaurants no longer viable. So this is simply not acceptable or sustainable for our mom and pop shops, our local restaurants. Delivery sales are proving to be a money-losing proposition for restaurants when they're forced to pay an exorbitant percentage to delivery companies. So that's why it's imperative that we pass my amendment to the Senate budget next week, number 115, an amendment relative to extending third-party delivery cost containment for restaurants to regulate these fees, as delivery sales are going to make up a significant portion of restaurant sales for the foreseeable future. If we don't, we're liable to see many more restaurant closures and jobs lost in the months ahead. Our local restaurants are depending on us to take immediate action as they work to remain afloat in this unprecedented time. Finally, I would like to talk about businesses who opened their doors around the time the COVID-19 pandemic began and how they've been left behind. The federal government determined that businesses could not prove a 25% loss in revenue prior to last year's revenues as a result of the pandemic would not be eligible for PPP loans. Why? How can we say as a society that simply due to bad timing, we don't need to provide newly formed businesses with any support despite mandating they either shut their doors or drastically alter the way they can do business? How could these businesses meet those thresholds if they had not been in business long enough to produce this data? That's why I filed an amendment in this year's budget to create a nascent business fund to ensure those businesses with limited operational and income history are supported here in Massachusetts. And the fund would consist of a $5 million grant opportunity for these small businesses to help keep them afloat until the pandemic is fully behind us. It would also cover 501c6 organizations, which have also been shut out of the previous opportunities as well. We are on the road to recovery, but we must recognize that whether it comes slow or fast, small businesses across Massachusetts are going to need the legislature to provide support and financial relief for them however we can as they begin to rebuild all that has crumbled around them. It's not just vital for them, but to the health of all of our communities. And with that, Amanda, I do want to say once again a huge thank you to everybody who came out today, who showed up, who's providing support, for your advocacy, for keeping the pressure up on the legislature to get these things done. I'm truly humbled to be amongst all of you and to fight alongside of you next week during the Senate budget debate. Thanks, Amanda. Back to you.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you, honestly, for all of your hard work on behalf of small businesses up on Beacon Hill. And as the Senator mentioned, there's, very important, there's a very important timeline coming up. So we're going to have to kind of keep our voices raised in the next few weeks to get some of these measures passed. And now we're going to hear from small businesses who these measures would impact significantly. And they are meant to be representative of many businesses across the state. I'm seeing in the comments and in the chat, there are people who are experiencing the same thing that, that these businesses are. So keep the chat going, keep sharing your stories. We appreciate it. These stories are what is going to inform the policy measures going forward. So first, on the issue of business interruption insurance, we're going to hear from Richard Heller, who is currently of Pineapple Hospitality Consulting Group, and he's the former longtime vice president of Legal Seafoods. He has a very deep understanding of this issue, as Legal Seafoods has been in a legal battle with their insurance company for about a year now over their denied business interruption insurance claim. We know that many smaller restaurants are dealing with the same thing. They face similar circumstances, but haven't had the ability to fight their insurance company the way that Legal Seafoods has. And we felt like his intimate knowledge was going to be very important to add to this discussion. So Richard, it's all yours.
Amanda and Chris, I just want to thank you for giving and Thirst for giving me the opportunity to share my experience with the organization. I want to thank Representative Fernandes and Senator DiZoglio for their bills to help small businesses, because they're fighting against an insurance lobby, which is pretty strong, has a lot of resources, and continues to fight this battle. I just want to give you some background on the circumstances and talk about some of the issues that we're facing in court. First and foremost, people probably view Legal Seafood as a big business, but it's a family business. And when Dylan talked about his family operating a small business, I remember when I was a teenager peeling shrimp with members of the Berkowitz family for the fish market downstairs. Now, needless to say, they were much more successful. I said, I can't do this anymore. And I went on to practice law, and they ran a very successful business in which they were devoting 24/7, 7 days a week. And they built a business with their commitment to quality and integrity and honesty. And we every year purchase business interruption insurance. And in fact, last March 1, in the midst of the pandemic, we renewed our business interruption policy with no virus exclusion. And to give you some background of the insurance industry, in 2005, the Insurance Service Office recommended a virus exclusion because that's the organization that represents the carriers. They recognized that without a virus exclusion, there were claims to be made under the property casualty coverage. So what they proposed was a virus exclusion. And some of the carriers opted not to carry the virus exclusion. They made it optional instead of mandatory because they felt their business, certain of their clients were purchasing the property and casualty insurance on the basis that these claims would be covered. And they made those representations to the insurance regulators when they were setting the rates. So they would argue higher rates because we're taking a greater risk. And everyone understood that there was a consequence of physical loss as a result of a pandemic, viruses. There's case law in Massachusetts which suggests that carbon monoxide event gives rise to business interruption insurance. Our lawsuit was filed because our position was that not only was the business shut down by virtue of COVID-19, there was COVID-19 present in the restaurants, as evidenced by employees that became ill during that period of time. There's strong scientific evidence that the particles exist in the restaurant for a period of time. And so we filed our claim, and shortly after we were shut down, and the insurance carrier, roughly after 2-minute phone call with me, denied the coverage, which left us no choice but to file the lawsuit. And the reason the legislation is so important is because what the courts have done, the insurance carriers have argued, well, if we have to pay out on these claims, we have to pay everyone. And so what the courts have said, for the most part, at least in Massachusetts, the carrier's motion to dismiss was granted based on the federal judge's decision that there was no structural damage to the premises. That's not the basis of the policy. So we're appealing that. There's an amicus brief, which is a Friends of the Court brief, which has been filed by United Policyholders, which supports lawsuits of this nature. But the reason this legislation is so important is that it would give guidance to the courts as to what constitutes damage. I would propose to expand the legislation beyond the 50 employee limitation, because I really believe that there shouldn't be, and I understand the basis of that because of the economics, but for the purposes of the insurance carriers, they've reaped a lot of benefit from these premiums, and just cutting it off at 50 is kind of arbitrary. And so I would consider expanding or doing away with that limitation, and really having a presumption in the legislative work that COVID, there's a presumption of property loss as a result of COVID, and shift the burden of proof to the carriers because they've not stepped up. So I think that's it. I think if Legal Seafood had been able to recover under its policy, which we expected to, there was no virus exclusion when we renewed when we obtained the policy last March, a year ago March. I think we'd still be in the company. The family would still own the company today.
Thank you very much, Richard, for being here and for sharing that. I did post a link in the chat that outlined more of the Legal Seafoods fight. And as I mentioned, and as Richard mentioned, a lot of small restaurants, but not just restaurants, hotels, B&Bs, movie theaters, you know, other types of businesses have been denied business interruption insurance claims. And I would like to read one comment from Joe McGuirk, who says, perhaps we should consider legislation that might refocus the insurance industry from being primarily a tool for generating profits back to its actual role as being a way to indemnify its policyholders. I think that is a very good point, and maybe insurance reform is on the horizon. Yes. So I also wanted to mention that I did reach out to the Attorney General's office about this, and they said that if anyone thinks they've been wrongly denied a business interruption insurance claim, they would like to hear from you. You can call the consumer complaint line, and I'm putting that in the chat as well, or seek free legal advice from them that they've put out during COVID. Because we know that a lot of people have been told to not even bother fighting their insurance companies because of the legal costs. So,
Amanda, I would like to offer that if anyone has any questions or would like to understand the theories or how to pursue a claim, I would be happy to assist.
That's amazing. Will you put your contact in the chat?
Yes.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much. So moving along. Next, for the issue of cocktails to go, we have Jeff Mitchell from the Talkative Pig in Chatham, who is here to share what the ability to sell to-go alcoholic beverages means to his business.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Jeff Mitchell, and I first just want to thank the senator and the representative for being here today. It means a lot to be able to actually see the faces of your representatives. And of course, I want to thank Amanda and Chris as well. I came here through the Thirst Group, and I've had a long relationship with my business with Amanda at Live Love Local. We are a small restaurant. We have 38 seats. We have basically no ability to have outside seating due to a very small lot that we have. And we are your classic family restaurant. We are family owned and operated. My sister, myself, my mother, and my father, we own it. We run it. We're the employees. We have, in the summer, a large group of people, but in the winter, it's very small. And we don't have a huge profit margin or one at all recently. In 2019, that was actually our best year. 6 years we've owned the restaurant, and in 2019 we made $1 million for the first time ever. And of that money, we only had $60,000 in profit. And we went into 2020 thinking we were going to have another great year. And then, you know, the pandemic came along, and we only made $600,000. We had a 33% drop in our sales, and that's not profit, that is just pure sales. And that is unfortunately the national average, but that is what we saw. And we lost many employees, and we lost a lot of business. And from the time that the lockdown started in not lockdown, but the to-go only started in mid-March up until the point of July 20th, when we were allowed to start selling our cocktails to go. We had sales numbers of $200,000, and we had no liquor sales. And that is compared to 2019, in that period, we had sales of almost $400,000. That's part of our summer, that's part of our biggest time. So a 50% drop in business, and our usual liquor sales are that drop. We sell about 40% liquor. We have a very great bar program. We make all of our cocktails in-house. We do our own simple syrups and things like that. And we really take a lot of pride in that. And it translates very well to go. We've operated using mason jars, and we've have labels, and we handwrite everything. And it has been a great opportunity. And it has added up to 10% in the August of 2020, that summertime on Cape Cod. We had 10% liquor sales when we had no one in our dining room. And that saved us. That money was able to keep our doors open as we went into the winter, and people left the Cape and went out, went other places. So what we're talking about today is extending this Cocktails to Go program for another 2 years. So what I did was I looked at my 2019 sales, the last year that we had full restaurant and full business and full employment. And that was the year that we made our $1 million. So if we were able to add another up to 10% sales on that, that's another $100,000 that my business can have to grow and to recover from this pandemic. Now, if you take that number and you pull it out across the entire state, the state in 2019 made $19 billion in sales on restaurants. Now, you take another 5 to 10% of that over 2 years, you're looking at somewhere between $2 to $4 billion in sales. That is revenue, that is employment, that is people with jobs. And what we've done here in this pandemic is we've allowed people to work safely and work from home, and they've gained education and they've gained new jobs. And the restaurant industry right now needs to be able to keep up with that new economy of work. We need to raise our price, our employees' wages, and we need to move forward and continue to survive. And we don't want a world where every restaurant is a McDonald's and a Burger King. There's nothing wrong with those places. But if you don't have a mom and pop restaurant, you don't have that little shop on the corner, the place that really is the place that restores its community, we've lost way too much to this pandemic. So this is a simple bill that we can pass. We can really change a lot, and we can do this. We can make it happen so that the little restaurant is there tomorrow, because that's what we're at risk of right now, is really losing that place, our home, that restaurant. It's just like my mother says, when anyone walks into our restaurant, welcome back, welcome home, have a seat. That's what you're going to lose. So, Senator, Representative, please do your best. I know it's not totally in your hands always, but we would love this. This means a lot to us. If we can have this extra revenue, it keeps our doors open. It keeps small business in the state alive. So thank you everyone for coming, and I hope we can get this.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I have like tears in my eyes. Thank you for being so forthcoming about the impact that the temporary measure has had on your business and how much extending it would help you moving forward. I think it's, I wanted to reemphasize that it was a very temporary, it expires when the emergency order from the governor expires, which could be, I just got a text message saying he's making announcements today, so it could be tomorrow. We don't know. So, I think giving the restaurants some certainty in this uncertain time would be pretty amazing. So again, thank you, Jeff, so much for sharing your story. And next we have Steve Kurland from Evo and ZA in Cambridge, and he's here to talk about the impact that third-party delivery apps have had on his business, and to talk about how extending the legislation that passed only through emergency order would have on his business.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Kurland, and I'm from ZA and Evo Restaurants in Cambridge. I'm a happy member of Mass Restaurants United and also Cambridge Local First, which I know are well represented here. I guess I'll share my story. And what happened to us is when the pandemic hit, we have 3 restaurants, 2 ZA restaurants, which are upscale pizza, and another restaurant called Evu, and Evu is more locally sourced, casual fine dining. We closed Evu pretty immediately. We could see that it was not going to get the service we needed, and we can't really do takeout effectively. The other 2 ZA restaurants, immediately sales plunged dramatically, and we turned to takeout very quickly. We'd had takeout about 10%, 15% of our sales were takeout, and upon closing everything, our sales became 100% takeout. And in Arlington, they still are. In Arlington, we do only takeout out of that restaurant. And in Cambridge, our sales are probably 60, 70% takeout still, but the sales are down substantially, 80, 90% at times from what they were pre-pandemic. I dug into a lot of this, and I've been on dozens of emails and dozens of Zoom calls talking to people from around the cities, around the state, around the country, about how egregious some of this, the way we're treated by these large third-party delivery companies is. We are, for those of you who aren't aware, the 3 large delivery companies, DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats, basically own 98% of the territories around the United States. And although they don't exactly publicly declare it, they're pretty much an oligopoly. If you are a competitor, you're kind of forced out or bought out or priced out of the market. And what happened to us is we needed them. We use DoorDash and Uber Eats. We realized that we needed to find some ways to try to minimize those costs as best we could. And we did everything we could to get down to 25% as opposed to 35% of our costs. And it was really difficult. That was temporarily fixed by this couple of those delivery companies, threw us a bone for a little while. And then the state stepped in, and it was such a relief that the state set that rate at 15%. It really changes the way people are looking at it. It also changed the way that the restaurants are affected dramatically because we got to keep more of our sales, and those sales go to running our business. Our business went from the 3 businesses combined about 100 employees to the 3 businesses combined about 30 employees. So to give you an idea of the impact on the business and the people who work for us. The state of Massachusetts put in that 15% cap fee. And the other thing that they put in that was tremendously helpful is they put in some into the budget, they put in some discussion about some discussion about the predatory practices that they've been using. Things like using our name in our menus, things like if you go to look up my restaurant, we're about number 10 on the list of the internet searches. They own our clientele names and information. It makes it very hard for us to operate. Basically, once you're in, it's hard to get out. The restaurants, predatory practices have hurt us probably as much as the other stuff. We have a restaurant right next to us, and what happens is these companies were listing these companies were listing us without our permission. Like they would then order from us as though they were regular guests, take our food and deliver it. We have a restaurant next to us, and that restaurant continues to have deliveries showing up despite the fact they've been closed for 15 months. 3 times a week, a driver shows up to pick up an order that they think has been ordered from this closed restaurant. When I talk to the owner of that closed restaurant, they say, we never signed up for that delivery company. We have no idea why they're there. So these kind of things continue to happen. I'm so happy to see all these state representatives here, and I've talked to many more in my area. But the Attorney General's office seems very open to talking to us. They've reached out to me. I've reached out to them. The state representatives have been very helpful, and I would urge you to reach out to them, and I would urge them to reach out to make changes that will allow us to keep this 15% cap fee in place. It is a lifeline for so many restaurants right now. So thank you very much. And back to you, Amanda.
And I just put, again, the Attorney General's office also said to me, they want to hear from anybody who has continued to experience predatory behavior. They have put these companies on notice. They've been informed they are not to be putting menus up on their sites if they weren't explicitly told they could. And if the fees have gone above 15%, which I actually just heard the other day that they're now attacking on different types of fees and calling them something else. So they're continuing the predatory behavior, which is why extending this this cap is so important. And I also just want to reiterate that price gouging is price gouging whether we're in a pandemic or not. So just putting that out there. Thank you, Steve, for sharing that with us and sharing your experience with us. And next I want to invite a different kind of business owner. So these issues are not just restaurant or hotel issues, right? Other businesses have been severely impacted by the economic slowdown and public health guidelines. And that actually, referring to the third-party app fees, or third-party app delivery services, they are going to be branching out into other sectors of the economy. So they are going to do retail. They are going to go after other sectors. So even if we think it doesn't impact us now, it could impact us in the future, depending on the industry you're in. But for now, we want to talk to, so other businesses that have been impacted are retail and gyms and yoga studios. And here to talk about her experience as a new business founded at the beginning of 2020 is my dear friend Jitka Borowick from Nove Yoga in Dennis.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for having me this morning. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Senator DiZoglio and Representative Fernandes for giving small businesses the opportunity to offer input on the enormous challenges we have faced since the pandemic started. So my name is Jitka Borowick, and I came to Cape Cod in 2003 from the Czech Republic with the goal of learning English. I ended up making this my home, a place where I am not only raising my family, but where I launched my first business, Clean Green, an eco-friendly commercial and residential cleaning company in 2008. But today I am not here to talk about Clean Green, but my newest company, as Amanda mentioned, Nove, a yoga, health, and wellness studio, which I opened last year. In the fall of 2019, I found the ideal location for Nove on Main Street in West Dennis. I was able to secure an SBA loan in February 2020, allowing me to move forward with the goal of having a ribbon cutting and grand opening for Nove in April 2020. And then COVID happened. The opening was delayed until the end of June. There was no celebration. I quickly had to switch my business strategy to focus initially on virtual offerings, sinking time, money, and resources into creating high-quality videos while trying to market a new company in a time of uncertainty. And then there were the costs of implementing the safety measures, which I had never budgeted for. For any business, this was financially unattainable. For a new business, it is simply unsustainable. In April, I reached out to the SBA to defer my loan. They did so, but only for 3 months. At that point, my loan went from $1,000 a month to $1,359. And then when I called them again in June to ask if they could lower the amount or if they could defer my payments for a few more months since the pandemic was still happening, they responded by requesting mountains of paperwork that included fill out the attached COVID-19 questionnaire as thoroughly as possible, updated 12-month cash flow projection for Nove based on the current guidelines and their impacts. Please include assumptions and narrative on how you will operate the business in the current state of COVID-19. Current personal financial statement, you and your husband, May 31st, 2020, profit and loss, balance sheet for Clean Green, May 31st, 2020, balance sheet for Nove Yoga, to 2019 personal returns. When I saw the list, I had no time, I had no staff, I had no resources to put all this together. I was focusing on growing a business in the middle of a pandemic. Oh,
I can't tell if that's me or or Yika, but I think it's Yika. So hopefully we can get her back, but oh, there, sorry, Yika, we lost you for a sec.
where did you lose me?
You said you were focused on growing your business.
So over the last year, we were looking into funding opportunities. And the only one we were able to receive was from Loveless Local, the Cape Cod Resilience Fund. We received $1,000, which we are super thankful for. But this $1,000 covers 1 week of teachers' payments. The other programs, including the PPP, have stringent requirements for when you officially opened. Many have mandated that your business had to be in operation in 2019 in order to qualify. Operating business during normal times is challenging enough. In a pandemic, these challenges have been compounded significantly. And when you are trying to start a new business, like I am with Nova, it's nearly impossible without the type of financial support and resources that have been given to other companies that received it because they were in operations before 2020. So I strongly urge you to find ways to address those loopholes so businesses like mine can negate the heavy losses we have suffered and begin to move forward in a manner that can enable us to grow, flourish, and succeed. And by doing so, you will be allowing small business owners the chance to share the success with the communities that we work and live in. I thank you for your time and the chance to share my experience with you today.
Thank you so much, Yika. And again, her story is not unique. You know, we've heard from a lot of businesses who started at the very beginning of 2020 on Cape Cod, and they have been ineligible for every source of funding out there. Even when people tell them that they're not, they really, you know, Yika has been told, you know, oh yeah, of course you can apply. She cannot apply. She cannot get any PPP. She cannot get EIDL. She cannot get any state grants. And I think that's important to acknowledge. And thank you, Senator DiZoglio, for continuing to fight for them. Okay, and so now I'm going to sign off, and Chris is going to take over.
Yeah, what's happening, everybody? Thanks for coming out today. I want to welcome Jackson Cannon. Jackson has run several of Boston's iconic bar programs until a shutdown in 2020 shuttered them. From his position as partner in the Hawthorne Bar and director of Eastern Standard and Island Creek Oyster Bar, he was able to sustain a national reputation as a beverage and hospitality expert, working as a judge yearly with many of the most prestigious bar and spirit competitions. During the pandemic, he launched a partnership with Boston.com for a weekly community cocktail club for which he serves as host. In that capacity, he's able to highlight local businesses throughout the guest bartending appearances while teaching the public how to make the favorite classic cocktails at home. He's been advocating for some relief for Massachusetts restaurant community, especially highlighting the merits of cocktails to go by launching the hashtag Cocktails for Commonwealth. Thank you very much, Jackson, for doing that, by the way. He joins us now from his Zoom bar in Quincy, Mass. to talk a bit about his experience over the past year. Welcome to you, Jackson. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Chris, thank you. And thanks, Amanda. Thanks to Representatives Fernandes and Senator DiZoglio and all the speakers and everybody interested in being on here. I appreciate being invited to kind of tell the story of our bars and restaurants briefly, hopefully as a call to action for practical responses from all of us to kind of push these initiatives forward. In 2005, I was the opening bar manager for Eastern Standard, and from there was able to become bar director running that program and Island Creek Oyster Bars, and then partnering with Garrett Harker in opening the Hawthorne craft cocktail and event space, all in the Hotel Commonwealth in Fenway area. And these were big and busy and fun and thriving businesses, and enjoyed a kind of almost institutional response from people based on our reputation for service and great product. When we were shuttered in the pandemic, we had the misfortune of a landlord response that really made it impossible for us to reopen. We negotiated as much as we could with them, but they immediately demanded full rent for the duration of the rest of our leases, and engaged in a tactic to try and threaten us by holding our intellectual property in the names of our bars and restaurants hostage, as they basically sought to drive us out to redo the space. Now, this is not the situation for everyone, but this is the situation for some of that third of businesses, a third of restaurants and bars that had to close. And while I kind of understand that if you find your business in that situation, a certain number of them are going to close in a crisis like this, and the initiatives we're talking about wouldn't have really been possible exception of a robust insurance response right away, able to help us through that. But if big, busy, beloved places like that are going to close, I think the important thing is to remember by the kind of actions we're talking about taking today, we can protect as many others as possible, and that's vitally important. I think tactics that were successful in getting the temporary initiatives pushed forward involved all of us dropping kind of a call to phone in to your local representative and senator. Those were very, very helpful, including in your posts things like the published listing of their office phone numbers, even offering to find the names of them for people who haven't done it before, and reminding folks that their representatives actually do want to hear from them. I was really gratified to hear back. I called representatives in the areas where the businesses were. I called where I live, and I found the response, was one of really trying to understand what the issue was. And I'll just say this, in a world where we've heard that, small businesses, restaurant bars, and others are operating on these very slim margins and having their top line impacted in a way that renders them unprofitable right away. Any of these incremental helps, especially like cocktails to go and the cap on fees, these need to be of a duration long enough to help us climb out of this, and hopefully protect as many of the businesses as we can. And so I would just encourage you all to get that message out through all of your social networks and otherwise. And I'm just really grateful to be asked to come and speak, and grateful to everyone who's here. So that's my story.
Thank you very much, Jackson. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming out today. And when we show up, our elected officials take notice. So being here now may be more important than we all realize, actually. And today we heard from some small business owners from across the state that have been impacted by issues that could be alleviated, even if only temporarily, through logical and mostly simple legislation. As you can see, small businesses across Massachusetts need additional support. Owners may find themselves being impacted by one of these issues or all of these issues. And unfortunately, there is no way to make us all whole, and recovery will take many years. We need legislation in place that will give us the tools we can count on to rebuild business. Legislation that protects small business from larger companies that are out only to make profit at all costs. And legislation that provides the insured the assurance that if they pay for protection, they will receive it. Some people might say that these things can wait, but it feels like we've already spent enough time waiting for the legislature to act. And the thing is that the people telling us to wait have no idea what it is like to wonder when you'll be able to sell an item, or how long you will actually be able to sell it for. They don't have to think about what will happen if half of their orders get hijacked by DoorDash. And not only does the business suffer, but what about their tipped workers? We need the assurance now that the legislator supports small businesses concerning all of the issues, not just the issues that leadership thinks are important. So here are our action steps. Number 1, contact your state representative and senator. Sorry, guys. So number 1, contact your state representative and senator. Send them an email and call them up. If you don't know their info, you can look them up on openstates.org. I believe Amanda shared the link. You can call them up. You probably won't get them directly on the phone, but staffers will pick up the phone, and they know everything that's going on in that office. I highly suggest making friends with these people. They are very nice, I swear. Number 2, sign our petition. Yes, petitions really do help. Through the petition, we can send out a call to action, which can help us organize effective email and calling campaigns when we really need a push. Also, legislators we are petitioning will be able to see how many constituents support small business and which ones which are really important for us to do this. And number 3, we need to share support on social media. Sign the petition and share the petition. We need everyone to spread the word of this. And I know that it's weird to post this stuff on your business's page, but our guests love us and they will help us if they're called to rally. We also need to keep in mind that this is not a political issue. These issues are not political issues. Supporting small business is not a political issue. Advocating for legislation that can help small business is something that should make constituents feel good, right? We should be able to call up our elected officials and be like, hey, we need to help out these people for these reasons. We need to reach out to our elected officials and pay attention how they vote on the floor. They represent us. We might not have the funds or the lobbyists, but we do have the numbers. We have owners, we have guests, we have employees, we have parents, and we have friends that love what we do, and they all want our support, and they all want to support us. And when we start contacting our elected officials, they start to pay attention. When we tag them in social media, they pay attention. And when we make their phones ring, they definitely start to pay attention. So call them up. It's time for some action, guys. Get out there and please share what we talked about today. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. And thanks again to all the small businesses for sharing their stories. And thank you to all of the state reps and elected officials who came today. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for helping. And we really appreciate everybody in the fight. And we definitely have a busy week this week and next week of, shaking some trees. Love it.
And definitely
everyone, be in touch.
All right. Thank you, senators. Thank you, representatives. Thank you, everybody, for coming in, business owners and guests and advocates.